So we've got markets near all-time highs, which leads us to this piece from MarketWatch. Well, 6 out of 7 conditions are met for a stock market bubble.
So
this
first things
strategist
first,
says.
Does anyone have 7 conditions that they agree upon would designate a stock market bubble?
Well,
Is there any defined metric out there that any respectable entity has ever put together saying these define a bubble in advance?
If someone actually took a giant bar of soap and got the New York Stock Exchange covered in a giant bubble, then you could say it's a stock market bubble for sure.
Yeah. Other than that, I have a tough time. But let's run through what he defines as his signals, one person's signals for a stock market bubble.
This is UBS a global equity strategist Andrew Garthwaite, who I don't know Andrew from Tim, and I couldn't tell you anything about him. So
There's
this is
Tim Garthwaite.
Sure, there is somewhere. This is not to poo-poo Andrew. It's much more how this is being presented, because I'm very sure that in Andrew's own words, it's not being said quite like this.
Right. So first one that he checks the box on, end of a structural bull market. So UBS defines a structural bull market as when equities outperform bonds over a 10-year period by at least 5% per year.
And that happened?
I wasn't tracking it. I didn't know that anybody looked at it. So apparently
they say it did, sure.
Profits under pressure.
Earnings growth is slowing, particularly in cyclical sectors. No, it's not. We're projected to see like 17% earnings growth this year. That's not true. And they were faster growing last year than the year before.
So I mean, maybe NVIDIA's earnings growth is slowing? Are you choosing specific companies under specific sectors to say this? But I don't think you can check the box on earnings growth slowing when we are projecting, what was it, 14% growth for the year on earnings?
Let me get you actually FactSet's most recent data. So this is from January 17th. And what they are projecting, this is, again, they take all the consensus analyst estimates and stuff them into a blender, and this is what they come up with, is calendar year 2025, 14.8% earnings growth projected. Seems to be pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Calendar year 2024 was 9.4.
So that's an acceleration.
That's an acceleration, not a deceleration. And the year before in 23, I can't remember what it was, but I can pull it for you shortly if you just give me just a minute.
So he then describes a loss of breadth. So a handful of technology giants, what UBS calls the Magnificent Six. Haven't we been talking about the Magnificent Seven for the last decade? Why did we cut one out?
Why would it be the Magnificent Six?
Don't know.
Like, that's not a movie.
Those are driving the market while smaller stocks lag. That is true, but it's also been true for most of the last decade and specifically the last 3 years. So timing-wise, I have some issues. My least favorite one on the list. It's been 25 years since the last bubble.
Calendar year 2023. Okay, here's earnings growth. Sorry,
I
interrupted. 2023, earnings growth was 0.8%.
Okay.
So 0.8, 9.4, and now projected at 14.
That is a very clear acceleration.
What are we talking about? I'm sorry, but that's this piece is fundamentally wrong.
My least favorite one here, Chuck, though, this is the best. It's been 25 years since the last bubble.
Oh, boy, 25 years since the last bubble.
So
down the hatches.
Shows the number of which it has been, 25 years since the last bubble, and we are putting a check mark next to it because...
We're due. Yeah, it's just like Ortiz when he's up in the playoffs. We're due.
Also, sorry, the definition of this is a stock market bubble. Are we saying that 06, 07 was somehow not a bubble? Or 2021 wasn't?
Inconclusive.
Okay. Okay, here's one that I will just generally give you, but I don't know that it defines a bubble. The this time is different narrative. Well, yeah, and I suspect that whenever somebody says this time is different, that they are wrong. But people have been saying this time is different for every market cycle ever.
And even on this, it says, I'll read the next sentence. Investors are betting big on generative AI as a game changer for productivity. Okay, let's go back in time, I don't know, 15 years or so. And I remember all of the 3D printing bros that were like, 3D printing is going to be a game changer for manufacturing. Right. How much 3D printing goes on right now? There's some, don't get me wrong, but it hasn't been, a thing. You can go through like all these different, things, and just because something gets hyped doesn't mean it's a bubble. I'm not saying that this isn't a bubble, but I'm saying this is a bad list, and some of these are fundamentally dumb and or wrong.
Inaccurate, it would be, yeah. Look, I mean, I will pick apart any of these pieces, but when you give me one that has virtually zero statistics attached to it comparing one market to another.
And some of the statistics are wrong.
And some of the statistics are factually inaccurate. Man, this is irresponsible
now,
reporting.
I'll allow for this. There's a pretty good chance that whoever wrote this piece for MarketWatch, Stephen Goldstein,
did not summarize
these
strategists
correctly.
properly.
So I'll allow for that because something might be getting lost in translation between Andrew and Stephen.
Yeah, I don't necessarily blame Andrew for this one. I doubt he had pre-published review rights on it.
But this is why you have to read these things critically, is some of these things are fundamentally not true, and others just, why would they matter? Why is there a set bubble clock?
I love that one. Just, it's been 25 years, so...
Mary, you got to reset the bubble clock. It's been 25 years. All right, I'm eagerly anticipating the stock market bubble of 2050 that I'm sure we will cover in great detail at that point.
Yes, we're all very excited.